It's a black screen. A single candle flickers as the faint piano notes of Amazing Grace begin to play. Slowly and emotionally, a soft, pleasant voice begins to speak. Tuesday evening, November 18th, 2025. One photo was shared on Instagram by gospel singer Guy Penrod's wife, Angie Clark. It was nothing more than an open Bible with Psalm 23 on the page, a plain gold wedding band sitting on it, and 3 words underneath, "Please pray for us." No justification, not a grin. The entire gospel music industry ceased operations in a matter of minutes. The phones began to explode. Nationwide, prayer chains were established, because you can tell something is seriously wrong when Angie Penrod Clark begs you to pray. This is the tale of the most resilient family in Southern gospel, and the unexpected heartbreak they experienced. Guy and Angie. Who are they? Guy Penrod is best known to most people as the large man with the deep voice and long hair who spent 14 years singing with the Gaither vocal band. With just one line of "Then Came the Morning," he could bring 30,000 people to tears. However, behind that voice was a wife named Angie Clark, a reserved woman who, for over 40 years, stood in the front row of every concert, grinning as if she had the greatest seat in the house, because she had. They were married in 1985 after meeting in college in 1983, and during that time, they never spent more than a few nights apart. There were 8 kids, 7 boys and a young girl towards the end. After raising them aboard a tour bus, they moved to a lovely farm outside of Nashville. Every night ended with the 10 of them singing songs around the kitchen table. Sundays were spent in church, and Mondays were spent at family dinner. They were referred to as the ideal gospel family. They appeared unbreakable, the initial indications that something was wrong. In retrospect, the warning signs began in the summer of 2025. Guy had never canceled 3 consecutive weekend concerts. Although vocal rest was the official term, friends saw that he appeared thinner and more exhausted than sleep could restore. The length of Angie's weekly Facebook videos decreased. Her chuckles seemed a bit forced. When they drove their youngest daughter, Sarah, to college for the first time in August, Guy's stomach ached so much that he had to stop twice on the way home. Angie insisted that it was simply age, stress, and life on the road catching up. Nothing urgent, however, they scheduled a blood test for October, for safety's sake. The date of the diagnosis is October 14th, 2025. October 14th began much like any other Tuesday. After eating a light breakfast and saying goodbye to Angie, Guy drove himself to the clinic for what they assumed would be standard tests. The doctor called at midday and requested that they both return right away. They heard the words, "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer," while they sat in a tiny office. The liver was already affected. There was no chance of surgery, perhaps 3 to 6 months with the most potent treatment available, much less without it. According to Angie, the room began to spin. "Well, honey, I guess we're going home to Jesus sooner than we planned," Guy remarked, reaching out to take her hand, before asking the doctor if he may continue singing until the very end. Guy was that. The family gathering. All 8 of their children abandoned everything and flew home that same evening. Suddenly, there were grown sons with tears streaming down their faces and a daughter who was shaking uncontrollably at the dining table that had hosted so many joyful meals. As usual, Guy sat at the head and told them himself, when he stated, "I'm not afraid to meet the Lord. I'm afraid of leaving you kids and your mama." His voice never wavered. Angie jumped up and assured them all that they would love each other more than this cancer could. They did just that. "We're going to fill every day with music, laughter, and Jesus because that's who your daddy is." The gospel community's response to Angie's heartbreaking post. They kept it private for 5 weeks, only talking to their closest friends and family and praying a lot. Then, on November 18th, Angie realized it was time to share the news. "Our precious Guy is going home to Jesus much sooner than we ever dreamed," she wrote after opening her Bible to Psalm 23. Placing her wedding ring on the page, taking a photo, and writing the words that broke a million hearts. Bill Gaither called a few minutes later, sobbing, "Please cover us in prayer." A video of the entire family singing around Guy's bed was shared by the Isaacs. All-night prayer vigils were initiated by churches from Ohio to Texas. Quilts, letters, and videos were sent by complete strangers describing how Guy's voice had guided them to the Lord years prior. The Penrods were embraced by the gospel community, which would not let go. The last weeks, Selecting happiness over fear. Guy made the decision to not hide. Even though the painkillers made his hands shake, he would take his guitar outside to the front porch every night, sit in his favorite rocking rocker, and sing whatever hymn came to mind. The family set up a phone and went live on Facebook to launch Porch Nights. Every night, thousands of people joined in on the song. One evening, Guy began, "Knowing You'll Be There," looked directly at Angie, and was unable to finish because they were both crying too much. Tyler, their eldest kid, took up the verse and continued it. Over 20 million people have viewed that video. People reported that it was like being in both a hospital ward and a church. Angie's final message and the farewell, November 24, 2025, arrived quietly. The entire family was present. On the floor, the grandchildren were calmly playing. When Guy asked them to sing "It Is Well With My Soul," Angie took his hand and sung the song directly into his ear. He grinned, muttered, "See you in the morning," and slipped away to Jesus as the final note faded. Angie held him there for a considerable amount of time. Our Guy is singing with the angels now, and his voice is stronger than it ever was on this earth. She wrote in her last post later that evening, "We appreciate all of your prayers, songs, and tears shared with us. It's exactly what Guy Penrod told us to do. So keep singing, believing, and loving. We'll meet him once again." Final legacy photo. Even when no one is seated in it, the porch swing continues to glide softly in the Tennessee wind. The family still gets together around the kitchen table on Sundays to sing the old songs because that's what Penrods do. Even if the farm is now quieter, Guy Penrod dedicated his life to using every note he sung to lead listeners to heaven. In his last days, he performed it once again, this time from a rocking rocker on a plain front porch, surrounded by the family he cherished more than fame, rather than from a concert platform. Churches don't always deliver the most impactful sermons. They are sung through tears by a guy who knew exactly where he was heading, and they are acted out in living rooms. Now that Guy Penrod is back at home, the rest of us will be able to harmonize with him once more. Final thoughts. Guy Penrod's final song. The Tennessee farmhouse is now quiet in a way that can only be found in a house that once had 8 children and never stopped playing music. With the exception of a folded quilt that Angie still puts out every night, the porch swing creaks in the November breeze. Sometimes she sits there by herself, tracing the worn area on the armrest where Guy's hand once rested. Out of habit, the kitchen table is set for 10 inside. There are 8 chairs for the children, one for Angie, and one that is slightly pulled out in case someone needs a seat at any moment. The grandchildren inquire as to why Papa's chair is vacant. "Because Papa's singing in the big choir now, baby," is how their mothers always respond. He's got the greatest seat in heaven. On November 24th, however, the actual farewell took place in the living room. To give them room, the hospice nurse had gone outside. The 8 kids sat on the floor or knelt around the hospital bed that had taken the place of the couch. Guy's eyes were clear, but his respiration was shallow. He gazed at each face as if he were trying to commit them to memory one more time. "You take care of your mama's heart, okay?" he said to his eldest, his voice barely audible over the oxygen machine. Tyler could only nod, tears streaming down his father's fingers. "She's tougher than all of us, but she's gonna need your shoulder. Jesse, Logan, and Joe, keep those boys in check. Teach them to fish, teach them to pray, teach them to say yes, ma'am, and mean it." The 3 middle sons sobbed as they recalled their father forcing them to bait their own hooks on every camping trip. My singers are Lacey, Zach, and Caleb. Never stop harmonizing. The smaller lads leaned in and touched his foreheads. "That's me smiling down when you hit that high note in Amazing Grace." His voice broke as he said, "And Sarah, my baby girl. I apologize for not being able to accompany you down the aisle, Daddy." "You already gave me away, Daddy," Sarah whispered, burying her face in his chest. "But I'll be watching from the front row in heaven, and I'll cry harder than anybody. You gave me to Jesus first each time you sung about him." Since the morning, Angie had held onto his other hand, soft as a lullaby. She leaned near his ear and began to sing, "It is well with my soul." The children joined in one by one, their voices trembling but powerful. Guy's lips twitched as they came to the sentence, "When peace, like a river, attendeth my way." "Well," was the last word he uttered, They claimed that there was such a profound silence in the room that you could hear the clock stop ticking. Go on home, love, Angie replied, kissing his forehead. We'll make up. The Gaither bus was parked out front like an old friend, and the burial was small, attended only by relatives. Bill Gaither was unable to conclude his 2-minute speech. Guy Penrod didn't just sing the gospel, he added, placing his hand on the coffin. He lived it aloud. Angie now shares a quick video from the porch once a week. Sometimes all she does is read a letter from a fan whose marriage was saved by Guy's music. Occasionally, the children may sing a verse that their father cherished. In the final one, which was uploaded yesterday, all 8 of them are shown passing a single microphone around the table. In flawless 4-part harmony, they sing the chorus of Knowing You'll Be There. After they're done, Tyler says, Dad, we're keeping the song alive, looking directly into the camera. I'll see you at the reunion. On November 24th, the world lost a voice. However, heaven acquired a baritone that causes the angels to bend closer. And somewhere, a family is discovering that thankfulness and sorrow can coexist. Because the most crucial lesson of all was imparted to them by Guy Penrod. Love never ends when the song stops. It simply switches the key.